Greetings, today on my Focus RS I am installing the K-brace from BAF Motorsport. Alright, here we are then, the BAF Motorsport K-brace for the MK3 Focus RS, available for lots of other cars as well if you check out the BAF Motorsport website. But yeah, obviously this is a big brace. It is 4 points, so 2 over here, 2 over here, and it goes in the rear of the car. It may not have been immediately obvious, but these mounting points are a kind of an angle, so it hugs the backs of the seats nice and closely. And yeah, it comes with everything that you see here, the brace of course, a couple of stickers, and then a little mounting pack which includes all your riv nuts and like this sort of tool thing for doing that, but we'll get to that once we get to the installation. It is obviously not just for cosmetics, it is for performance as well. BAF Motorsport say that it increases handling, faster cornering as well, and that is because it reduces body displacement by what BAF Motorsport claim 18%, which is quite significant. So yeah, it's going to be a nice performance improvement. It's going to look great in the rear of the car, and because of the way that it is angled up against the rear seats, it's not going to remove much, if any, boot space, which is quite important if you use your car on a daily basis. You can get just the top bar bit only, but I figured why not go the whole hog and get the full 4-point K-brace. It's just better and it's going to look more cool, and yeah, just everything better, maximum turned all the way up. You can get it in multiple different colors. Obviously I have got it in red, so the colors you can get: black, white, grey, red, yellow, blue, or unpainted. And they do offer a service as well. You can get it custom painted, color matched to whatever color you want as well, which is pretty awesome. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Time to go out to the car and get started on the installation. Alright, first thing I gotta do is jack the rear of the car up and remove both rear wheels. Alright, there we go, got the wheels off. So what we need to be accessing is right up in there. Up at the top of the shock we have 2 studs, and those are secured on there with 2 nuts. So this one right here, the one that's closest to the front of the car, that's the one that we need to be removing here in order to replace that with one of the supplied extended bolts and nut setup here. So the first thing we need is a 13mm socket. Okay, so getting this nut out, I've got my wrench, big extension, and my 13mm socket, big extension just to get right up in there nice and easy. Alright, this next bit then, to remove the actual stud, we need to use an E-Torx, and specifically an E7, so that's what I've got right here. It's quite a small size, so I've had to use a 1/4 inch to 3/8 adapter, and then I've got that on an extension on my 3/8 ratchet. Okay, so here we can side-by-side comparison the BAF Motorsport extended bolt and the stud that I just removed there. The nut that we took off is being replaced by the cap here, so that would be like that, and then that would be like that. So you can kind of see the difference, that once that pokes up through into the boot of the car, we're going to have that amount of extra space in order to install the BAF Motorsport K-brace on top of. You can ignore the nut for now. This goes inside the car on top, that secures down the brace, so the nut isn't for now. For now we just need to get this in place. Okay, so to do this we need an H6 hex. Okay, so literally just gonna screw this in and get it nice and tight. So get it started by hand, just get it onto the threads nicely. Okay, cool, that's one side done, so we just need to repeat that on the other side. Then we can get the wheels back on, lower the car back down, and get into the boot area and continue with the K-brace installation. Right, we're back on the ground and in the boot area, and this is what we see. Now we see the ends of the 2 extended bolts sticking up through where the struts are. Now, if you are doing this for the first time, you won't see this specifically. What you'll see is the sort of felty stuff, sort of domed up on top. I just happen to have holes here from a previous brace installation, so mine just went right straight up through. But yeah, just cut a little hole there with a blade and they come right through, and that's where we're at. So the next thing is to remove the false floor, the foam, so that we can get to the actual floor of the boot. And then we also need to bring out the brace in order to mark where we need to do some drilling. Alright, so what I have done, as you can see, I have loosely placed the K-brace in where it is going to eventually be secured, just putting it over the 2 bolts that we have here, and that basically then shows us where we need to install our riv nuts, so that we can bolt down the bottom half. So what we need to do is basically get a Sharpie or whatever permanent marker you like, mark a little dot where those holes are, and then that will show us where we need to drill. As you can see, I do have some of this Dynamat stuff here, which I will probably need to scrape off, but you probably won't have that same issue. But yeah, I will do that. Then I will mark it with a little dot, and then I will go and grab a center punch. Okay, so I stripped away some of that Dynamat to just get down to the metal where we need to mark and drill. One thing to note whenever you're marking where you're going to drill, if you haven't cut back this like felt liner all the way and you're still kind of on top, if you push down on this, it can sort of move. So what I would suggest is applying a good amount of downward pressure on top of the brace, while you then with your other hand mark where you're going to drill your holes. So if you look, I'm not applying any pressure now, then if I apply pressure, it can shift forward a little bit. So just a little point to note, apply that downward pressure when you're doing your marking. Alright, so to help with our drilling and for accuracy, center punch. So get that nicely lined up and then hammer. Obviously do that on both sides. Okay, onto the drilling then. So I'm going to start small. I think this is a 2 mil, and then I will just gradually build it up, and we are going to go all the way up to a size of 13 millimeters. So you do need to have some big drill bits to get those riv nuts in there, but yeah, just gradually build it up. And every so often I'll give it a little vacuum. Depending on the size of your drill, it might be advisable just to pop the seats down a bit, either partially or all the way, just in case you can't, you know, get this straight. You know, if you've got a really big drill, this is quite a small drill, it's just a little 10.8 volt DeWalt, but if you've got like a bigger, like 18 volt, say for example, you might struggle to get this nice and straight. So yeah, just pop the seats and carry on. Another thing to note is whenever you're drilling into metal, always wear safety gear, at least safety glasses, because, you know, little shards of metal flying around can do a lot of damage. So yeah, safety first. Alright, there we go then, that is all the drilling done. I went 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 and then jumped all the way to 13. 13 that I have here is a cobalt with reduced shank down to 10 to fit into this little drill. Worked a treat. So yeah, now we're ready to get our riv nuts in place, 2 of them obviously, and using the little tool that is provided, which they provide because I figured that they figure that most people don't have, you know, a riv nut tool, and this little contraption that they provide is really quite a smart solution. So let's go get that now. So these are our riv nuts. Riv nuts are pretty cool. It's quite simple the way that they work. Essentially this bit right here, well, it sort of goes in the hole, and then this side is above the hole and the rest of it is underneath the hole. And then what our little tool does, whether you use the tool that's provided or an actual riv nut tool, essentially this bit right here like crimps up, and it just essentially, along with this top bit, clamps onto the metal that you have drilled through, and then that gives you something to bolt into, which is just a really neat idea. So they give us 3, even though we only need 2, but you know, whatever. So we can take the 2 loose ones and just pop them straight into the holes. Alrighty, and obviously the same on the other side. So the way that this little tool works is provided, so obviously you can see it's a riv nut, then on top of that there's a lock washer, then there's a nut which is, you know, too big for the threads, so it essentially is acting like a spacer in a way, and then just a big bolt that's going through. So essentially the way that this works is we tighten that in to the riv nut as it is, then we use one spanner to hold our little spacer nut thing, and then we use another one or a socket to continue to tighten the bolt. And essentially what that's going to do is just sort of make this go clink and sort of crimp onto the metal here. So it's a really nifty little idea, so let's get started. So keeping that same order of the parts, first thing that we can do is just thread this in by hand till we get a little bit of resistance. Okay, so you're only going to get it so far because like the actual riv nut is like, you know, loose in there. So then we need to go and grab our 2 wrenches. So if we do 19mm over the top to hold the spacer nut so that it doesn't rotate whilst we're rotating, and then a 17mm on top. I'm using the closed end of a ratcheting wrench, so what I can do is I can like sort of put my thumb in here and apply a bit of downward pressure so that the riv nut doesn't, you know, work its way upwards at all while we're getting it initially tightened. So what we should end up with then is it should feel like dead tight, whereas before obviously it was like all loosey-goosey. So whenever it's dead tight, you know that it has crimped and it's holding into the metal. So at this point then we literally just have to sort of, you know, reverse what we were doing there and like, you know, undo this bolt, and then that'll be that. We can move on to the other side. There we go, I took it out and we have one nicely installed riv nut. Alright, there we go. So that is the second of the 2 riv nuts fully installed. My camera battery ran out there while I was doing that, but you get the idea. It's the same as this one over here. And yeah, now we are ready to get the brace installed into the car here. Just one interesting little thing though that I did notice in the pack. Part of securing the top of the brace up here and the seam over there requires washers. Now they are provided in the pack, although BAF Motorsport say that you're meant to have 4, but they only gave me 2 of these big like sort of coin washers. So I mean, it's not a huge deal. I just had to jump into the garage and grab a couple of random washers to use, because they say that for these bottom ones you don't need washers, you just need these 2 big bolts. I guess the heads of the bolts are big enough to not require washers, but they say that the top ones to sandwich a washer either side of the brace and then do the nut on top. So yeah, literally gonna just have to use a couple of random ones. So yeah, not a huge deal, like I say. Literally just gonna pop these on top like that, and yeah, I'll go and grab the brace. Okay, so I have popped the K-brace in its approximate location, so now we can get all 4 of the fixings on sort of loose just to begin with. So well, before I do that, I'll just take our 2 big washers and pop them over the top like that. So yeah, I'm also going to use a little bit of blue thread locker on the threads, just because you don't want it coming out under vibration as usual. So yeah, let's get them all in hand tight, loose to begin with. Alright, so now that we have all 4 of those fixings just sort of loosely in place, everything is nicely aligned, we can go ahead and tighten everything up. So for the big bolts on the floor, we require 17mm, and then up here, these are 13mm nuts. There we are then, that is everything tightened up really nice and tight, and it feels really strong. Like whenever I do this, it's shaking the whole car, so yeah, pretty solid. Next thing we need to do just to finish up is to get the foam and the false floor back into the boot, and that may require a bit of trimming just because of the new bits that we have here. So yeah, the foam, now that I have the seats back up in place, you can see that the foam would normally sit on the other side, like the sort of just the far side of the bar there, so you know, I could just lob a whole big section off, but I'm going to start off sort of more conservative, try and conserve as much of the foam as possible, and I'm going to start off by cutting just like a section out of here, so that it can kind of go around. Might need to chop a little bit off there as well, just to get it beyond this piece of bar here, but yeah, I'll give that a go and see how I get on. So yeah, I ended up having to cut a little bit like off the sort of back edge as well from the middle of that rear section. I mean, it's not used anyway in the foam, it's kind of redundant, you know, it doesn't really matter, I don't really care about having to cut it away. So yeah, now you need to get the other one in. I'll probably give this a little bit of a vacuum. I've got lots of little bits of foam kicking around here. So this side, the big bit, it turned out just to be easier to just cut essentially a sort of rectangular section out, sort of following along. This is sort of has cutouts already in it, this section right here at the back, so essentially just cutting down to that and then along and matching it sort of roughly on this side. That should get us in. Alright, I've got the false floor then here, and I put it as far in as it will go, so that we can see here and here where we need to do a couple of little cuts, just to get that to go the last few inches into place. Alright, there we go then. That is the false floor installed. You can see just here where I have cut a couple of holes in order to allow it to fit in and around these bottom parts of the K-brace, and I tried to do it as neatly as possible. So the way that I did it was I started off here and here with a straight cut all the way. I measured from like the back of the seat there to like this side of the K-brace, and then I figured out where the K-brace would need to be going through, because obviously it's going through at an angle, so then you need to cut out a rectangle that takes that into account. So that's what I did, and I did it as neatly as I could. So yeah, I think it looks pretty good, pretty neat. I'm pretty happy with that. So then the last thing that we need to do, which is an optional step, is stickers. So what you're provided with are BAF Motorsport sticker and the K-brace sticker. I'm going to not do this one, I'm just going to do this one, and I'm going to do it in the suggested spot, which is right in the middle here. There we go, and with that, we are installation complete. there we are, that is the installation finished on the K-Brace from BAF Motorsport. I think it looks absolutely fantastic. The red really pops in there, and of course it feels really solid, so it's going to improve performance, which is another great thing. And yes, overall the installation was not too bad. Some kind of awkward bits, mainly around cutting the false floor, because there's a bit of like fiberboard in there, so you have to get a saw out and stuff, but you know, it's not too bad. It's par for the course, and ultimately I think it is worth it. So yeah, what do you think? Let me know in the comment section down below. I hope you like it as much as I do, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching. Please do like, share and subscribe for more content to come very, very soon. Thank you once again. Goodbye.